I'm sorry I cannot be with you in Germany today, but let me make a few comments about transdisciplinary research. No one would deny that the world has accumulated a series of wicked problems which dominate in the thinking of virtually every country in the world, be it the sustainability agenda writ large, or the various components of it: social cohesion, climate change, living with technologies, and infrastructure failure. The list is very long: the burden of healthcare, food and water security, and so forth. And if one looks at the SDGs, the Sustainable Development Goals, one sees that there are many complex trade-offs between those that reflect our need to extract resources from the planet, energy, food, water, and those that reflect our human needs to avoid poverty, to have better health, better education, equity, and so forth. And then there are others, such as climate change, that reflect the need to find a policy way and a knowledge-based way between those that reflect extraction and those that reflect need. And if we look at documents and reports such as the Global Sustainability Development Report, we'd have to admit that for all the science that's claimed to be relevant to the sustainability agenda, writ large, we've not achieved a lot of progress. And in this context, it's worth thinking about what the science system delivers, and think of it in terms of descriptions that Michael Gibbons made almost more than 20 years ago, nearly 20 years ago. He talked about mode 1 research, which is the dominant form of research which you fund now through a variety of mechanisms, where problems are set and solved in the context governed by the interests of the academic community or the funding community through program, project grants, or perhaps even mission-led research. And the dominant model is discipline-based or perhaps interdiscipline-based, but it's largely driven by a linear process of trying to address a particular problem, and it's reflected in the way the whole system works with program grants, project grants, the way promotions in universities work, the way the publication system works, the bibliometric outputs that are assessed, and so forth, how research assessment works. It's a linear model, and it's definitely not designed to address the wicked problems. But Gibbons also talked about a different kind of model, what he called mode 2 research, in which the knowledge production is carried out in the context of its application and involves stakeholders right from the outset, and it should not be thought of just as simply interdisciplinary science, because it involves stakeholders beyond the scientific community. There are many forms of mode 2 research, from citizen science and other forms of participatory science, but the dominant form we need to think about is transdisciplinary research. What is transdisciplinary research? It's characterized by two factors. The first is that stakeholders beyond the science community, the key stakeholders, are directly involved in framing the problem alongside multiple disciplines from within the scientific and academic community. And that's difficult because it's actually saying that no one discipline or the academic community has a hierarchical relationship to the other stakeholders. And indeed, the real essence of transdisciplinary research is putting one's individual framing outside the door and having a set of process and discourse actually to identify what the problem is, and then agree on the modalities to undertake it. This can take a lot of time, and indeed really leads to a two-stage process. The process is critical. The process of resolving with stakeholders what is the real question and what kind of science and other ways of using knowledge or applying knowledge are needed to address the complex problem. Then it may be the actual process of undertaking that research. But then the research output is unlikely to be an academic paper that gets high impact in a traditional journal. It may be a report, it may be a change in community activity, it may be a change in policy settings. There are a variety of impactful outcomes of this research that are far different to just publishing a paper in a so-called high-impact journal. Over the last few years, the International Science Council has been interrogating why science has not made more progress on these complex issues. And in its report entitled Unleashing Science, it highlighted that really these major transformational issues require transdisciplinarity. But even smaller issues within a community, a local community, can require transdisciplinary approaches and probably will benefit from them because the research uptake will be so much better than from a scientific paper. So there are a number of issues. First of all, the funding mechanisms at the moment do not really attract or support transdisciplinary research because it needs to fund both the process, which can take a long time, matter of years sometimes, and then having engaged the community, it has to be able to fund the actual research itself and support the appropriate outputs. Secondly, the research assessment process is different. It involves looking, is the process genuine? Are the stakeholders appropriately involved? Have the right range of disciplines been engaged? A very different kind of research assessment is needed on transdisciplinary research and is unlikely to be well conducted by those who are embedded in traditional Mode 1 research. Then there's the question that if the system is not designed for this work, then why should scientists undertake it, academics undertake it? The university promotion systems poorly recognize it. As the outputs are unlikely to be in traditional bibliometric form, the overzealous use of bibliometrics in research assessment of the individual will fail. It's team-based research. It involves people beyond traditional academics. It can involve many other members in the academic community who are not academics, but are professional staff. And all of that is part of the output. So not only do funders have to change, but institutions have to change if Mode 2 research is to be undertaken, transdisciplinary research used to address the wicked problems. Now, of course, we still need Mode 1 research. Nobody would deny the importance and the criticality of the traditional linear model of research. But as I said right at the beginning of these comments, it's not solving the problems in local communities through to the global community, which we often call wicked problems, complex problems. It is the obligation, surely, of the research community to support the research that will meet the needs of our society at every level, at every scale, and the ecosystems within which we live. Therefore, I think it's an acute obligation on funding instruments which you represent to think through how you would add to your repertoire of funding models a way of properly supporting transdisciplinary research. Much of this is discussed in our paper, The Future of Transdisciplinary Research, and in the report to the United Nations called Flipping the Science Model, all of which can be found on the IST website, www.council.science. I'm sorry I cannot be with you and engage in the discussion, but I wish you well.